Hello and welcome back to Yumi and CPG, and today we're talking about energy. The energy drinks category has had year-on-year growth for over 30 years, and it's still in high growth across Western Europe and the US. Red Bull and Monster, the hardcore extreme side of energy, still dictate play. But there's a wave of more modern, healthier energy drinks that speak to a new consumer and is in faster penetration growth. One of those pioneers is Tenzing, who are driving this natural subcategory and becoming a force to be reckoned with in their own right. Interestingly, they are backed by Heineken. We have Tenzing founder Huib Van Bockel to get us under the skin of the category and the culture surrounding it, and of course a view on the future of the category and what that might look like. Thank you very much for coming in. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Good. Great to have you on board. We're going to explore all things Tenzing, all things energy, and we've got loads to talk about. Something I want to start with, which I'm sure you get asked an awful lot, but I think it's incredibly interesting. You were deep inside Red Bull at one point in your career. What did you see that you thought this isn't right, or I can do this better?
Yeah, it's like a funny question because I think if any founder will tell you how incredibly tough it is. And that's not, I used to read the books I remember reading Losing My Virginity from Richard Branson. And that's my first founder book. And I just read it like a novel. I loved it. And that's also and I thought, this is what I want. And it all sounds so romantic. Yeah. And all of them also like Shoe Dog. One of my favorite
Nike
books.
Ones,
and they share how tough it is. They don't hold back. But when you read it, you're like, oh, romantic tough. It's like when you're, watching some movie that's really tough, but you always there's romance about it. But then when you're in it, it is really
it's just tough.
So I think always the only reason why someone would do it is if they are, extremely kind of stubborn. And I was always that. So if you say, what could they do better? I always had that at any company. I never listened. I had a lot of great bosses, but I never liked listening to them. And so all the big things I did in my life were effectively not listening to people telling me what to do kind of. So I do believe in that as a kind of, philosophy. Also in big companies, you have to let people hire the people that don't listen. And, then let them be a bit, But if you ask me specifically about Red Bull, to be honest, I don't think you could fault them on hardly anything when it comes to brand.
Done a pretty good job.
Name me a better brand, to be honest. That's more consistent.
Yeah.
Bigger, always is bigger, but in the FMCG space, it's just how they exploded. There's luck in there as well, of course.
Sure.
Timing. But I was there for 8 years, and after a while, I just didn't feel the same way about the product.
But you wanted to stay in the category, obviously.
Yeah, so I was because I started one business before, and it was really interesting. It was kind of I loved it actually. It could have been a very successful business, I believe. There's nothing wrong with the concept. The concept was actually super strong, but I just wasn't the right person to launch it, or to make it big.
What was it? Tell us.
It was so I started my career at Unilever, and then at one point I always liked the creative side more. And then at one point I was like, you're a marketing manager, but you're more manager than marketing. Yeah. So, and the Unilever was fine if I'd launched my own business on the side. And it was it was basically based on my youth that I've always kind of liked clothes. And there was remember the boxer short? Right, back in the day, you just buy that in the supermarket, or whatever. Your mom would buy that in the supermarket, and then Marky Mark with all the Calvin Klein ads, and all of a sudden, a boxer short was like 50 quid.
Yeah, became a brand. Yeah,
it became a brand. You don't see it really, And then I thought that and so it was something like 2003, 4. So the only internet kind of just starting, and I was like, the sock is the only unrevolutionized item. And I'm going to revolutionize the sock. What a great mission to have.
Yeah, that's great.
Start in fashion, start at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that was one insight. The other insight was, okay, internet is coming. And what are you going to, there's no clothing item back then that you would buy online, except I thought the only item that you would potentially buy is the sock, right? So it was actually quite, the insights were spot on. Yeah. I actually didn't know that much about fashion, but I especially didn't know a lot about kind of the online kind of, because it got a lot of press, but it wasn't enough. So, was Facebook, 100% wasn't around. So there wasn't even anything to kind of, I wasn't like a whatever technical kind of geeks website builder, like a tech guy. Yeah. And I wasn't a fulfillment person. So as soon as we launched, I like basically lost all my interest.
Yeah.
And then I also, to be honest, I got the job actually from Red Bull offered. So I was at MTV in between that. Did that. I know we had it and then we just kind of sold the business. So I learned a lot from it because I was like, okay, I learned what I loved, which I knew kind of from my work anyway. But then you do something that you really. So the 3 lessons I got from it: best to do something that you do know, or at least that you know that you will love doing. 2 is go all in. I didn't I just kept my job on the side. It never felt like a real thing for me.
Okay.
Well, it could have been big, right? I mean, Happy Socks launched like 2 years after that. And it became a massive global brand. And ours was even kind of funnier and, and so like go all in. Yeah, so I think those are the 2 ones. Know the business, go all in, and kind of do something that you will keep enjoying.
Yes.
So that was the kind of. So I took those learnings, and then I got my career at Red Bull. And then, funny enough, at Red Bull, I actually 4 years before I started Tenzing, I actually pitched a natural energy brand within Red Bull. In Red Bull, not a brand, just like launch a innovation, natural, Red Bull, and they didn't want to.
Why not?
He just said like, what are they going to think about my own brand? And I said, well, nothing's going to change because they already think that's artificial. And I think Red Bull, to be honest, if you look at them, it's not. I'm not like telling them off or anything. You just see like Monster is the innovation business, and so are we. Red Bull is the marketing machine. I mean, innovation-wise, they've never been really like ahead.
No.
So I think
no. And actually, you look at some of their innovations. I think pretty poor actually in terms of their delivery of them.
Very, very, very poor.
And
always copy, like always second. So obviously Monster started with the big can, then they went around, then they started big can. They had like all the flavors. They did new flavors for a long, long time. Monster did a lot of flavors. Even the sugar-free was like that was done by maybe Monster before, or even like I think Tesco before. So Tesco was the first, and then let's do it. So they were like it's like I remember reading the business case of the Intel guy. I don't know, the CEO who just said only focus on the like Intel inside and only focus on making that little chip faster. And that was mega successful for 20 years, and then all they had was that. And I think Red Bull is a bit of that, where you go one SKU, one brand business. Extremely powerful. Extremely successful. Why change your winning formula? And now it's like, I never liked talking ill about them. For me, it was just very simple. I just thought, look, the product sucks.
There's obviously a lot said between the challenger mentality, the big company mentality. You've obviously got now a little bit of an insight into Heineken and obviously Red Bull previously. How can you describe the difference between a startup, a challenger, versus a big company?
So I think I had to think about this the other day, and I was like, if you're at a big, like, again, I was at Red Bull, I was head of marketing for UK and Europe, and I was like, but you are like sailing a ship that has been built, like the foundations are there, right? So, very much at Red Bull, the can was there, the ads, so you obviously, if you're doing a great job, you can hopefully make it go a bit faster and maybe steer it a slightly different. But when your own business, you're building that boat while steering it as well through pretty muddy water, choppy waters, where all these big dogs are trying to effectively kill you. So and I think that's also the toughness. So what the big thing is there, I thought, is like you're living with those decisions that you've all made, and some of those probably weren't great, or maybe you second guess them. So, and then you're gonna should I make them better? Should I make the boat better, or should I just kind of steer it? So that makes it so tough, I think.
How do you think a person, a head of marketing manager, marketing director, but how can you take some of that energy into a bigger business, that kind of mentality, resilience, that owner mindset? How do you think you can do that?
I've always thought like, it's a bit of a strange one, but I've always think you should be willing to be fired at all times. So it's like, if you listen, because at the end of the day, that's the whole point. We do that at Tenzing as well. We kind of have as flat a structure as we possibly can, because the people out there, like in a country, at Red Bull, for instance, or any company, will probably know best. So it's like, how do you keep them within the guidelines, of course, but also just, as a person, like if you ask me as a person, I would just say like, being like just that independent mindset, like all the decisions that were really good that I made, even within companies, were kind of not listening to what was said. And I think, just be try and be free of that all, because I think you'll be better, and then they'll you know, sometimes they'll be annoyed in the short term because you didn't maybe listen or whatever, but like in the long term you see the benefits of that. And I think otherwise
get
you
off
just
autopilot, isn't it? Just get off.
exactly and just challenge the thinking, you know, especially if you're like in a bigger company that's not going that well anymore. Use that momentum to go, hey, you know, what are we going to do here? You know, and try things. I think that's also the big things with big companies. For small companies, I always say you got to turn around the time. So at smaller companies like us, we launch super fast. If we have an idea, we can have it in 3 months' time, we can have it on the market. And then we take that idea and we stick with it for a long time. You know, while big companies, they took a long time to launch, and then they're like, "What?" I mean,
3 months in,
3 months in, doesn't work. You know, so if you got to turn that around and go, "Hey, this there is some insights in this product that it could work in the long run." Make that, like, you know, earmark that brand as, you know, Tenzing would have been delisted. Cut at any big business, right? I think whatever, in year 3 we were doing $1 million turnover, like for every business, be like, what? That's way too small. Like it's no good, going nowhere. So, but it's like, you know, finding those little nuggets and just kind of giving them more time. It's really funny, because why are startups so important? Because big businesses are stuck with their old products. Imagine you have the CEO of Coca-Cola in your podcast, and you'd ask them, hey, what if we say the following? So for instance, we've got about 65% less sugar in there in our products without replacing them with artificial sweeteners or anything. So you say that's a Coke. Would you take 60% of your sugar out now, make it a significantly healthier product, and all your people would still love the taste, and you wouldn't? Of course you'd do it.
Yeah, they'd do it.
You know? But he's stuck with his old product. You know, so and that's why, and then they don't dare change.
Because startups drive the innovation.
Startups drive the innovation because all these brands are stuck with old products that people have grown to love. But actually, the trends and everything, or they're conscious of, like, you know, doing something healthier, says something else. And then actually they become quite bad at innovation because they've become so big and so good at the machine. That they can't innovate, really.
For sure.
And,
I mean, that's just going back to your point of understandably not, you don't want to kick something like Red Bull or Monster. On the back of pack, you've got a phrase that says, life is too good for bad energy.
No, well, maybe I do kick him in that sense.
But it's a competitive mindset, isn't it? It's effectively saying bad energy is the traditional energy, the extreme, the artificial, the big boys of the energy world, and this is something different, right? That's a pretty pointed message.
It is, and what I really like about it, like, you know, we have a really, and it's really cool when you start your own business. So the one thing I knew when I started, all I knew in my mind was one thing. I've always been an outdoors person. I've never really liked all the motorsport side of Red Bull. I've always loved, like, I love skiing, I love running, I love bouldering. I was bouldering this morning with my son again, you know. So, you know, I love hiking, surfing, you know, and I you know, I love nature. And then and that's what I didn't like about the Red Bulls and it's just the artificial stuff, and it's really interesting if you really dive deep into that. So, for instance, if let's say global warming, like if it's really like a bad summer, like so hot, or it gets really cold, then the raspberries don't make it. So I am, as a person, connected to nature because I have to, like, I'm like, oh my God, if nature doesn't give me my plants, you know, I'm going to have a bad year. Well, if you make it everything in a lab in China or wherever they make it, it doesn't matter at all. So there's no connection to nature anymore in that sense. Not only, and that's even without your kind of what you put in your body. So I always thought, okay, the basic idea was energy from nature for nature. That was like the basic premise. But then to get, like, you know, funny when you've got your own brand, you shape it around your own things what you love. But I don't know, about 5 years ago, so halfway in the journey, then we caught sort of like good energy became like our mantra. And then we said, okay, you know, that's our mission. To spread good energy. And that's such a beautiful, simple mission, I think, and I love it. And it's so important. And we have that in 3. And then, so to come back to your question, life's too good for bad energy. It means that why take artificial energy and all that kind of stuff. That does crash you. Like people, we do a lot of research around that. They get a little crash because there's so much sugar, or there's the artificial caffeine spikes. So we see that 91% of our customer base says we get the same or more energy than the artificial energy drinks without the crash.
Where's the growth come from, though? Because we've done a lot of work in energy, and I'm still amazed by, you know, the category's been growing for 30 years and it hasn't gone backwards. And it's still in very strong double-digit growth.
It'll overtake cola this year, I think.
And again, in general, CSDs, it's, you put energy and sports drinks together and there is some serious scale there. In a world where CSDs has not seen that growth, what continues to drive energy from a consumer point of view? Why is it in demand as it is?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, still the growth will continue, I think, for years to come. So if you look at cola, so cola in the UK or anywhere in the world, right, probably has about like a 95% penetration, like per year. Like everyone will, have an occasional cola. I think energy, the numbers are a bit like, because for a lot on the go, is less than 50. So the penetration is still very, very low.
It's a good opportunity there.
So and there's a lot of barriers. So about 50% of our customers are totally new to the category because there's 3 reasons why people don't like an energy drink. They're very obvious. Everyone can name them. First of all, is maybe the vaguest. It's like, it's very masculine, teenage motorsports, so it really caters to a specific demographic.
And monster driving gaming and all of that.
Gaming and whatever, so that is like, there's a lot of people who are like, that's not for me, right? So they've done that very deliberately, but funny enough, they're trying to like break out of it now, go football and stuff, but still it's clings to them like a, I don't know.
Bad smell.
Bad smell, yeah. Well, that's another one. Smells really bad. A fourth.
Yeah.
Second is like, taste. People just like don't like that sickly sweet taste, like it literally a film over your teeth, right? And thirdly, like your health, the health worries that are around it. So like, and we tackle all those. So we cater way more to like, we've got a 50-50 male-female split.
Yeah.
We talk about like running. So we're very much like, and that's the beauty again of innovation. So we talk about good energy in that sense. Good energy for us, 4 things. One, what you put in your body. Like this is like all science-based, right? You could argue like what gives you good energy in your day-to-day life? What do you put in your body?
Yeah.
That's one. Like, for instance, I nearly basically, since I started my business, I hardly drink anymore. Like, definitely not during the week, because I just noticed like you need to be so resilient to start your business. Like, you can't get anything.
You can't have really a bad day.
No, it's because something could hit you all of a sudden. You're like, oh my God. So you need to have that constant resilience. So what you put in your body, having kind of that growth mindset, like we call it the personal Everest, named after Tenzing, the first man on Everest. So just have a goal, like moving forward. That's really good for your energy. Then community. So again, if you think about the Monsters and the Red Bulls, all about Formula One, it's one person beating all the other people, right? It's very individual. 80s, when it was all launched. Yeah. And now it's different. It's like, like we were discussing before, like they say, La Strava says the run club is the new, the new club. It's
new pub.
Yeah. Cool. So people love, being in the community. So if you've got people with good energy around you, that's crucial, of course. You need that. And then the last one is like kind of trying to leave it a little bit better than you found it. So I think those are kind of our 4 kind of good energy pillars.
And culture in itself has sort of, it's either impressive foresight from you guys, but better for you energy drinks, but better for you products, functional drinks, all of that stuff is obviously on the rise. But culturally, as you just said, younger generations choosing a run club instead of the pub, outdoor pursuits in high growth in terms of occasions and socializing connection in those spaces. It feels very much like you're tapping into that. Very deliberately. And do you look back and you sort of think, I did feel that at some point it was going to go that way. And look at it in that context, obviously Red Bull and Monster are still in strong growth. They're huge brands and they won't just cease, but they're starting to feel slightly culturally
dated.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, I am like very in tune with what's kind of going on. So I think that is like, it's always good. I think if you want to be, in any kind of business, right, it's like good to know your real strengths and your weaknesses. And I've got some really clear weaknesses as well, right, which I know very well, which is also crucial in your business to outsource those bits. But I do believe I have got like a good feel for what people like and what I like. And so, I definitely. So, and to be honest, like if I'm also unmodest, I think we kind of started the I don't think the better for you drinks. I think we're the first natural energy brand, of course, within energy. But I think even like if you think of Dash, think of Trip, they all started like 3-4 years after me. Yeah. And we know them. I know them very well. It's really, they're very successful, right? They're doing an amazing job. But like, I think, because you had Fever Tree and Innocent. which I don't think they were based around health, really.
No, but maybe laying the groundwork a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm not saying like, but there was obviously many before us. But I think from a kind of a soft drink perspective, that a soft drink or an energy drink can also be from nature and healthier. Yeah. And funny enough, you don't see that in that sense. So we, like here, for instance, we started in Holland, and the trend is not there yet at all.
Right.
So in the UK is, in that sense, quite far ahead. Because there's all these great brands like Trip and Dash, and leading the way, and then people because you have to open, as a just a normal person. Because we've always had because I know from my days there as well that people think energy works because it's so bad for you.
Yeah.
So because it's all those bad ingredients actually give me the energy.
The worse the taste, the better the efficacy.
Yeah, exactly. Like taurine, what is this? Or must be like people would always go like, I think it's like 20 cups of coffee. It's not. It's just one cup of coffee. In fact, in Red Bull with a lot of sugar in it. So people to kind of say, okay, how could you say, no, this stuff still works, which is obviously the main reason why people buy an energizing drink, but you don't have to worry about the health effects. That was the kind of the core challenge. Yeah. And by opening that up, I think people started to opening up for that, and then they might think, okay, I'll try a Dash as well, and and in that sense, all these kind of startups help each other. Yeah. Because then Dash. So we were the first ones, for another great example. So when I went to all these kind of flavor houses, which you have to do, so I went I took to all these nutritional. That's also the cool. You start your own business, you can start again from scratch. What's known scientifically now, and what's also known just in culturally, So one of the key things, obviously, first of all, I wanted everything to be natural. Secondly, what's the sugar levels you're going to go for? And I was really keen not to have any kind of sweeteners as well. So I remember going to all this. So I had this whole, and then the amount of sugar. So we have about 4.5 grams of sugar per 100 ml, and all the Cokes and Red Bulls all have 11 grams. And it's really funny because the history is not clear, but I think when Coca-Cola launched like more than 100 years ago, they probably based that on, let's say, apple juice or something. Because that's what the palate likes. So all juices are all 11 grams roughly. Yeah. Coke is 11 grams, Red Bull's 11 grams. So even at Red Bull and Monster, that is in there for the flavor, not for the effect. Right. So the best sugar, so you need a bit of sugar. Well, the sugar gets a lot of bad press. So you need a bit of it, but not that much. So when you're, for instance, I worked with a nutritional doctor, and he had the best example. He said when you're on a drip feed, let's say, in hospital, when you're in a coma or whatever, you get about 4.5 grams of sugar in that. And some salt, which we have. So we've got that exact same sugar salt base. And then on that base, there's the natural caffeine, it's the electrolyte antioxidants, L-theanine from green tea. So it's like, that's why you don't get you get the energy, but you don't get the, spikes. Yeah,
the crash. Yeah.
So, I think, and then what I wanted to say was, then I said, okay, I want to take about 60% of the sugar out. And all of them said, what do you want to replace it with? All of them. They'd never had a drink that just took it out. Yeah. And I said, I don't want to replace it with anything. And everyone was like, that's not going to be commercially viable. And no one wanted to do it. Right. I've only found one party that luckily wanted to do it. Yeah. And then since then, of course, like the Trips are at those levels of sweetness. Dash took it even further. Yeah, interesting. So that then opens, the palate up to...
New normal.
New normals. And that's the cool thing. That's what the World Health Organization also says. It's like, just drink and eat less sweet. Because people always go like, artificial sweeteners, they're not bad for you. But there's 100% proof that if you're constantly eating that or drinking artificial sweeteners, your palate gets used, just like salt. You get used to it, then you crave more sweetness. Well, if you just kind of tone it down, like for instance, our kids, we never gave them any Coke or anything. They don't like even the taste of it.
Too powerful, isn't it? Our kids are like that as well.
It's like a silver film. Like, Tenzing is really there kind of, that's what they love, and then everything below. So I think that's
my 5-year-old calls it fuzzy. She's had it once, and she said it's too fuzzy. I think, do you mean fizzy? So no, it's fuzzy. It's in my mouth. It's fuzzy. It's a great description.
Yeah, it is exactly. And I think that's the beauty of kind of starting something new and kind of seeing what you can make that is just better.
And just I think you touched on some really interesting kind of competitor brands or startup brands in a similar space, and that's what's really interesting is they are in a similar space. They don't see themselves as energy drinks, but they are in a similar space, and that speaks to the shift that we've seen with consumer needs blurring. Right? Yeah, there's been a huge shift, particularly with the younger generation, of needing different things at different times, making it actually quite difficult, particularly for bigger brands, to work out what they want when they want it. It is looking at how Tenzing is drunk across occasions, across kind of need states. Is it quite blurred in terms of how consumers engage with it, when they drink it, when they want it?
Yeah, so we've always had a really, which I think, is the best approach. So when you launch a new business, the number one thing, like, because you get so many people listen to these podcasts maybe, and there might be thousands of pieces of advice. And I always think, be very careful what you follow, because it might not work for your category or your specific time or your person. But I always think there's one thing that every startup who was ever successful did, and that was focus. Right, so every brand that ever started with a tiny little community, right? I always love when I do I always say, name your brand, I'll tell you. People go oh, Amazon didn't. Well, they did. Just do the books. All they did was books, and then the long tail. There's only thing you could only get these specific books on Amazon. And and if you see the interviews, he was practicing. He was getting that first group of people on board with books. I mean, now if you just start people, if you're young now, you would never know that Amazon started with books. Even like Apple. You think about the iPhone. It all started with the iPod, and the iPod was all about music. And before iPod, they just launched the iTunes. So they said, look, you can't, at the moment, you've got all these digital songs on your computer, and we'll got a free tool for you that you can now organize these songs. It's called iTunes. Everyone's like, great, free, amazing. And then also, hey, here's an iPod, actually. Now you can create that music and you can carry it with you. And then after that, they launched, obviously, the iPhone, where music is still a really big part.
The Focus was the start.
So it's tiny little Focus. Obviously, music is big, but organizing so an iPhone started by organizing your music on your laptop. Very niche. Facebook, right? You're only allowed to be on Facebook if you're on Harvard with a Harvard email, right? And I think that is something that people forget. So I always say, when people say, I'm going to start a chain of shops. What do you mean a chain? I think start one shop. I think, what was this the number? Pret-a-manger, 12 years, they had one shop, something like that. So every like Strava, beautiful example. They created an app that you could if you could move the sport, it could do it, and all they did was cycling. And there's a great podcast with those guys, and they're like, our biggest debate was, when do we launch that? When do we open up to that second community, which is running? And they did. I think they took 8 years. And then there was a big debate, and then all these cyclists was because they wanted to enrich that kind of. And we've done that, for instance, with I was our name. So I left Red Bull. I wanted to launch something that was for nature, from nature. And then I was traveling, and I found out what the Sherpas drink. So they drink really strong teas with salt and a lemon tea. And I had this doctor that helped me, and I said, is this cultural, or is this actually, scientifically proven? He goes, it is actually, because it's a triple hit of natural caffeine, vitamin C and electrolytes, and then the L-theanine as well. So that just became the base of our recipe. Wow. And then then Tenzing came to me, because my dad was always a big Tenzing fan. Because he climbed Mount Everest in 1953. My dad was about 10 at the time.
Wow.
And he just my dad always loved the underdog story.
Amazing story.
It is.
And to brand it from having that Sherpa story right at the heart of it. And it also embodies so much of, it feels like the culture within the business.
It is.
And that feels authentic.
It is true. And look, so then and that was cool, because, obviously, if you start a drinks business, the name is the most difficult bit, because it's the same category. Obviously, everyone will know, you've got the trademarks and trademarks in certain categories, but in the 32 trademark, that is the same as all juices, all beers, all kind of energy drinks, all soft drinks. Just imagine that. And I wanted to have a global name, because I always thought start focused, but think of potentially being a global brand. And no name is, of course, available anymore, because a lot of people trademark a name, don't launch a business. It's not only the names that are seen out there. So literally everything I came up with was already taken. And then I was actually in Asia on a trip, and I found this recipe, and then I thought Tenzing, and I looked in, and it was available. God. And Zing means energy. And I thought it was such a shame that he was forgotten. Because he's one of the biggest mountaineers and biggest explorers. No one knows him anymore. So I was like, wow, this, and it was like a spiritual moment. It was like, this is it all comes together now. And then I went to this trademark office in the UK. So you can register it online. Went to trademark, and I said, do I actually need permission from the family? he said, no, they don't, because Tenzing is a very normal name in that area. We say if someone in Nepal would call the drink John. But I thought I want their permission. And I found them, and we trekked to Nepal, and we went all the way to Tamboche Valley, and we monastery, and we kind of made a deal, or we made a deal with them. They're shareholders, they get rev shares, and we've been on this journey ever since. And then that coming back to the community and the starts. It's a long answer to a question.
Focus.
It's like I was like, okay, but like, so for instance, and then at the time as well, it was really funny because there was a lot of 2016, there's a lot of talk about how polluted Everest was. So I was speaking to Jumling, his son. I was like, hey, can we do something about that? And I was like, I was hoping that I could go back and we could do like a cleaning mission. It's like that. Those cleaning missions have no impact at all. We need to build bins. There was no bins. There was just like these oil things that fall over or whatever. So I'm like, okay. So I literally spent my first 10,000 pounds on marketing spend building bins in the and then I thought, like, how can I bring that kind of Himalayan world to London? And funny, bouldering was just becoming a thing. And I think there was 1 or 2 bouldering walls in London. Now there's like nearly 50. Bouldering is now a big sport. And that's really beautiful. Like, we've been really kind of part of that community. And just like Strava kind of, it's a great example, made cycling just a bit better. They were actively looking to how can we add to that community. That's what we did with Tenzing as well.
So when a consumer's drinking this stuff, is it after sport? Is it pre-sport? The way you're describing it is much more like a sports drink. Versus a traditional, which it's not, but a traditional energy drink, which is used for getting through the workday.
Well, I think, exactly. We definitely more, because we also have the electrolytes. Funny enough, electrolytes is now super hot. But we've already had them in there for 10 years. So I think people do use it for like a pre-run, pre-workout, during a climb. So I think it's about again, we do, we talk to our customer base and on our website, and I think it's there that we see it's about 50-50. So 50% really kind of in those, and then funny enough, it is all in the communities that we focus on. So we started with bouldering, running, gym, and that's where people drink us. And then there are other, and we've always focused on kind of, offices and unis as well. So we are the number 1 energy drink in London unis. We outsell the Red Bulls and the Monsters in unis, which is really cool, right? So we're the number 1 energy drink in forward-thinking offices. We've been in Google ever since 2016. They don't have any Red Bulls.
So that's really interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people have an issue, particularly with Monster, from an equity perspective, that you turn up to your office with a can of Monster, people think you're hungover, right? It's short and actually not dissimilar to Red Bull, and therefore they stay quite naturally young in terms of those brands, to that kind of teenage vibe. Do you think about that kind of lifestyle identity piece for your consumer as well?
Well, that's the beautiful opportunity. That's why we do so well in all those kind of, let's say, tech offices or banks. So we're very big in, let's say, Old Canary Wharf. We're in all those offices because people are generally ashamed to walk around with something. It's just like, when you're eating a McDonald's, you might enjoy it, but you're not like, oh my God, look what I'm doing here. And probably energy drinks are even worse. And that's always, buy those 3 things that I said, because actually they cater to that audience. They want to be like Monster, especially. They just we cooked up a double shot of this shit in our labs and Monster trucks. And that's why interesting with all the successful brands that launched. You had Red Bull, and then all the other brands that launched, Monster, then Bang you had in the US, was very big. It was all we're stronger. Even Celsius that has launched now. Actually, they say there's just artificial sweetener. They've got fruit on the can, but there's actually not a trace of fruit in the can. And it has 200 milligrams of caffeine. So they upped the amount of caffeine versus the Red Bull and Monster even. So they have this health cue, but actually, if you look at the product, it's just stronger. So we were the first ones to go, no, you can actually, we have the same amount of caffeine as the Red Bull. But it's just because it's sourced from green tea and green coffee, it's not so spiky. So I think, we were the first to go, no, this can actually be done in a different way.
And you can walk in.
And therefore you don't have to be ashamed, or actually you can maybe even be proud. I liked, because coming back to the good energy bit, I like achieving things. I'm actually focusing now. I want to kind of get something done. So that is very, very, powerful for us.
You're also seeing that, just thinking that kind of blurred consumer space, that because of consumers are drinking less, there's a kind of fun world of where kind of alcohol has often played a role, and there's a kind of fuel world where brands like Tenzing are playing really well, and there feels like there's a bit of an overlap of those two spaces at the moment. Do you think that's an interesting space for you?
But which ones then exactly?
So I guess thinking of the likes of Trip being able to be drunk in a bar.
Yeah.
Or even brands like Alane Nu from the US. It's an energy drink, but it's a very fun, expressive, female-driven energy drink bought for $1.8 billion by PepsiCo, I think.
Yeah.
So those types of brands are kind of in that kind of fun space. But what do you make of that? Do you think it's an interesting area? Would you kind of think to be pushing into that?
Look, what I think, for instance, if I look at just the UK, like Dash, Trip, and Tenzing are like, you could argue the main kind of, better for you disruptor brands, but I think in a very, very different space, very different occasions. Like, Dash, I love drinking a Dash as well. Like I drink 1 hour, it's my like go-to in the evening when I come home. Yeah. I cycle home, then I have a Dash. I'd never have a Tenzing at like 7 o'clock in the evening. So it's still like what I like about that product. It's like, which I think is what it's catered for. It still gives you a sense of, indulgence because you're cracking open a can. There's some flavor there, but there is like no sugar. There's just water at the end of the day. Yeah. So we don't compete with that at all. Trip, you could argue there is like, I love their brand as well. I love the fact that they've claimed the word calm. Yeah. But we're good energy. And there is a bit like, so for instance, our newest launch, which is the Fiery Mango. Yeah. It has lion's mane, so they have some of those lion's manes. But I think still so it's like cognitive. It's like going further. But for us, the position is really about like we say good energy for your toughest days. Yeah. So it's still a very.
You've got to be going after Monster with this, right? Like it's fiery. It's in a bigger can.
Yeah. Well, you see, we had like the insight behind that was that about 52%, I believe, is loyal to a size. This was one of our biggest decisions as well. So if you talk about, Strava going into running, we discussed this for years.
Yeah, it was a big one. Yeah.
We were like, does it fit our brand? But at the end of the day, we were like 52% of the energy drink of big can drinkers will not drink a small can.
Yeah.
They just like
that. Wedded to that format.
Yeah, they like that kind of a level of, caffeine. Yeah. They like that, they like the big can in their hands. Like it's very kind of an emotional bond nearly. So and also, of course, in the UK, you've got this meal deal thing. Yeah. So it's like near the bigger and the more expensive, the more likely the better value. To buy you. So we thought for a long, long time, we launched it. It's our bestseller straight away.
Amazing.
Yeah. So again, we put the sugar even lower there. So it's like, it's like a quarter of the sugar that's in Monster.
And you're stealing share from Monster with that?
We don't know the data there yet. I don't look up. I think as well, like, we see across the board, we did a big Tesco, I think it's that 100% of our drinks is additional. Yeah. So that's what also our other retailers like so much about it. It is wholly additional and it's like premium. So you're getting new people in and you're getting premium customers in, younger customers as well. Kind of our average age is not like teenager, like, maybe the Red Bull Monsters are, but the average age is around about that 25 mark. Yeah. Just out of, we always say the uni moment where at Red Bull and stuff, they wanted to get like, they always said like, with Monsters were clearly focused on teenagers. Yeah. With all the skateboarding and all that stuff. Even our communities, like if you go to a run club, you go to climbing wall, I think the average age is always around that 25 mark, maybe between 25 and 30. So that's really kind of, and we start at unis. So we want, that's why uni is a big focus. We want you to go, okay, God, when I was a youngster, I used to drink Red Bulls and Monsters. I'm now going to live by myself. I'm going to like start, and that's why we do so well.
It's an upgrade.
Well. Yeah.
And just talking to you, you seem very thoughtful, very considered. You take things very seriously. Big decisions weigh on you heavily. Heineken. Mm-hmm. That must have been an enormous decision, right? Talk us through that. How did that come about, and just the mentality of going, now's the time to let external investments from a company like Heineken in.
Yeah. So look, I think that's also a very important mindset. I think someone said, I think it was Bill Gates, wasn't it? Was you overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate what you can do in 10. And not that I said that to myself when I started, but I did, and I went way slower than I thought, and it was way tougher than I thought. But I was never in it to sell it. I know I'm gonna love this. I'm gonna build it around what I love.
Your lifestyle,
My lifestyle. We're B Corp. We were Rainforest Alliance. So again, from nature, for nature. That's been like at the heart of everything we do. And I'm never gonna sell. And that wasn't like a thing, like a posing thing. It was genuine. And I think that's, looking back, is also one of the most powerful things, because that automatically gives you a really long runway in your mind. Because you don't so many people are like, oh, I'm launching it, I haven't even launched it. I'm launching now, I want to sell in 3 years. It's like, good luck. It's like, very enough.
Yeah.
Like 0.00, whatever, like lottery, the Instagrams of this world. Right. But I think especially in this kind of business, it just takes long. Digital business can, of course, kind of explode.
Yeah.
But this, you need CPG, you need time. You need at least 5, 6, 7. Like we had COVID in the middle. Just when we were getting some traction.
Yeah.
So I think there was this realization for me, at one point, if you want to really scale, you can't do it alone. For instance, very simple. We were in every retailer. For instance, Tesco, we're the number 3 energy drink already. Like we were like, you got Red Bull Monster. It's like a 3-horse race now. You got the original one, you got the big can one, and you got the better for you natural one. But in the total market, Relentless is, for instance, still the number 3, and they're like a 50 million pound business. Right. Yeah. So and in unis, with the number 1. But it's all, so what you're fighting is 2 things: habit and availability, right? So we even do these tests where we just show ingredients. We show ingredients of Red Bull, show ingredients of Monster, show ingredients of Tenzing. We don't say what brand it is. 85% chooses Tenzing. We ask people, what would you rather have? A drink? And we try and ask as least leading the witness as possible. Would you rather have an energy drink made from natural ingredients, or would you rather have an energy drink that also contains artificial? We don't even say purely made from, which it is, but and then it's like 85% says natural ingredients. So if given the choice, if people would choose Tenzing, but it just you're fighting habit and availability. So that's cool. And availability. So in the UK, you've got 45,000 independent stores, right?
Sorry, it's obviously also, you'll know this better than anyone, the brand on top of that makes a huge part of that decision-making process, right? So it's, physical availability, mental availability, but it's also desire that sits in there as well.
We have the desire in those. So that was always my pitch: where we focus, we've won. So there is an actual appetite for this,
and Heineken unlock that.
Yeah, well, they are going to specifically not only help with funding so we can get the mental availability done, but we would have, so on a good example, the 45,000 independent stores, which you literally have to knock on every single door and say, hey, do you want to, Red Bulls and all 45,000 of them, Monster probably as well. We were literally, I'm not lying, 80 of them.
Wow.
So it's like, we're just around London, some of those key convenience stores. So, and they are going to put their full field sales force on Tenzing now. So that combo of being able to kind of unlock the marketing side and kind of, it was just crucial for us. And I think, they're very, and what I liked about them as opposed to, the more usual suspects like the Pepsis or the Cokes is like, they would not be as comfortable, life's too good for bad energy, artificial energy. They just sell all that. Or, so I think with Heineken, although it's an alcoholic product, it is a natural product. And it is like, and they're very much, they're all on the stock exchange, but it's still family kind of owned. So they really see long-term brand building, which I was always keen on. I'm also kind of stay involved as long as I want. And I'm still a majority shareholder, right? So it's only minority stake. It was really good partnership. It wasn't like the automatic unlock that you'd get, let's say,
if you were being completely taken over and someone says, here, distribution's open.
And because they're an alcoholic brand, they have more, of course, they're very strong on the on-trade, but also in convenience, but maybe not so much in sports, where maybe, let's say, a Britvic or a Suntory is. So that's like the downsides. But on the other hand, they're really keen to make this work, and they're great people.
Incrementality wise as well for them. You can see the strategic decision making behind it.
100%. So they're also like really keen to make it work. And for them, it's also like, so they haven't taken on any other brands, and like, I know that a lot of people have been knocking on their doors like, oh my god, they're in the market for it. So but they're like, make this work.
The focus is there. And just thinking, just coming to an end, just thinking about the future. One of the energy category, you said that, and you said you think it's just going to grow and grow and grow. Question is where and what type of growth, and it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that, and then ambitions for Tenzing.
Yeah, like I said, look, at the end of the day, less than, I think it's around that 45% penetration. So it's like a lot of women are like, I that's not for me. There's a lot of like, again, it was also interesting because there's also still a lot of runway, because I think it started what obviously Red Bull kind of started in a proper way, early 2000s, right? So any like nearly 50 plus person doesn't drink it, so but if you came into the market at like, especially like something like Tenzing, why wouldn't you keep drinking it? So there's like, I always have a cup of coffee in the morning, and then I have one at like, I have three caffeinated drinks a day. I do kind of limit also my caffeine. First is a coffee, and then I have one, let's say around about 10, and then one around just after lunch. Yeah. So it's like, I'm not going to stop that when I'm like, so where the classic energy drinks was like, because it was Jaeger bombs and it was like students, you kind of drop out more. So I think like innovations like ours is giving that longevity. So I don't think like I think the market's growing at about 12%. Yeah. We're growing about like 40% at the moment. It's a double growth of the market. So I think, I don't think the market's going to stop anytime soon. No. Like I said, I think it'll overtake cola in this year. Yeah.
And then your ambition for Tenzing, is it, you obviously the Heineken investment, I think it was only last year, wasn't it, 2025? You've got work to do there to unlock that partnership, right? And that must be the short term.
That's the short term goal. Yeah. And we both really agreed, on that focus point. Like again, the markets of energy drinks, sports energy, like 3 billion in the UK alone. Like a couple % of that, and you're doing quite well. There, isn't it? Yeah. So it's like just focus on the UK. Really go through that. Like we always say, like the invisible gate. Like once you really we're there in London. And now it's like, go UK and, so I think, and then only then we go abroad, let's say. So there will, so those are like next 4 years are roughly planned that way. This year will be like, London key cities, so we're really going to open in Manchester. We're going to, do stuff around the marathon there on the 19th of April, got distribution there now together with Heineken. Yeah. Then like key cities next year, like total country. And then, the year after, we want to go, try out some new countries.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Although I'm disappointed, Dr. Finkelbaum didn't, last the distance. The Tenzing story is pretty incredible, and as you say, the growth, the ambition, the future of it is really exciting. So, Huib, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, really cool to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, really appreciate it, and we'll speak soon.
Brilliant. Thank you.